you're never at peace with yourself, and then your man is never going to be at peace, so you can never tame him.
Welcome to the Immigrant Experience in America, an immigrant human library, where we amplify and humanize the experiences of immigrants in the United States and around the world. Listen in as we add another story to our immigrant human library.
There is no harmony in that relationship. I mean, that there is, it's just, some people say that you don't complete then each other, because the thing is, when people say, oh, we're a team, we're partners, I don't like these words when they use to husband and wife. To me, it's okay if you want to use the word partnership, okay, but it's an unequal partnership. A man and a woman are not the same, they're not equal, and but they do add to one another something in their inequality, and maybe that's how they create a certain balance.
Right. That yin and yang. There's a need and there's a space for the feminine and the masculine. And yes, men should be allowed to operate and to explore their feminine energy, expressing emotion and being able to be vulnerable and things like that. And likewise, women, if you want to pursue the left side of your brain by studying and following technical things and taking on hard things outside of that feminine energy. Yes, if that's what you choose, then there's space for that. But I do think that we are in a troubling place right now where I think the message is such that I think a lot of women are just pursuing just this masculine type energy and role outside of the home. And I don't think they're happy. I really don't think they're happy. There's a lot of conversations around that. Even when you get to the C-suite and you end up single, no child, nothing, you still desire that protection, that energy that a male will bring to you. You want to be cared for. You want that masculine energy to look out for you, like another woman can't. And
Yeah.
so that's just my experience. I can't speak for others, but I'm just concerned about some messages that sometimes frowns upon that.
Yeah,
Frowns
no.
upon like women knowing how to cook and caring and nurturing and just being in the home and just being happy doing that. It's just I wonder, where is our society going? And
It's frustrating. It's very frustrating. No, but that's why I was that's why my life has changed. And it's not that I'm not doing what I'm doing. I'm still doing, I have my trade. I'm still a lawyer. That nobody can take that away from me. But I changed husbands eventually. So because I knew who I was originally, where I came from, and I wasn't. That's why I say, like, in immigration, one problem with immigration is that one way or another you compromise yourself, a lot when you come to a country, especially come to a country like America. No matter where you come from, because America is such a different culture, you compromise. Of course, you compromise for a better life, but you still compromise. You give up yourself to adjust to this culture in order to survive. But like, I found out that I started, without noticing it, even compromising on how, as a woman, I was living my life, with my first marriage. Okay, going to law school has nothing to do with education. I would have always wanted to get my education. That's what my father would have wanted for me. I would have never given up on that. But it didn't mean that I was going to just work 17 hours a day every day for indefinitely, and having two children and doing this, and always worried about things financially. So what's my husband going to do then? Where is he in that? I understood that he wanted, it's not like he didn't want to better our life, but nothing was getting better. So, but on top of it, there were also other things as well. It's not just that, but there are other things that were accumulating, etc., etc. And eventually, and I always heard the word team. We're a team. We're a team. We're a team. And somehow that word is supposed to be a redeeming thing. and I just, that's not what I agreed to, what, just because it's America, and no, and there then comes the question, how much of yourself are you ready to give up, give into, or give up? So, and that's why so much of my book, well, I eventually obviously left marriage and and everything else, but there was so much of it. That's why I call the book Dreaming in Russian, because that part of me is obviously very Russian. I just and I also, like, for me, I always also wanted to be with a person, person that I married later. I wanted to be, to me, I want to be with a husband, with a man from whom I can learn things,
Yes. Yes.
you know, not whom I teach things. It's just something in my head. Like, I know my mom, even though my mom and my dad were only 4 years apart, so they were pretty the same, but she still learned from things. She said he was like a university. When before she started dating him, she had lots of dates. She was very, playful, and they were all entertaining and they were wonderful. But at first she didn't consider my dad, because he was so skinny, and so, like, he was just a skinny medical student. But the second he opened his mouth, she forgot everyone else. He opened his mouth, and every word he said was unlike everything else she's had ever heard. And that continued until the last, that night, that when he died. So I and that's how I want to see I am in no competition with with my husband. I want him to be more than me. I'm not, I have no insecurity in that way. I know where I can, what I can add. I don't care, It doesn't, I'm not, I mean, do you know what I mean? I have no
Yes.
concern. It doesn't matter to me. It excites me to be with a man who is a star. So, and that's what I mean, I guess that probably comes from what I observed with my dad. I mean, my mom was a star in a different way. She's a beautiful, gorgeous, glamorous woman, and she's very wise. And he relied on her all the time, on my mom. Um, but yeah. So, and I always think also, like, if my husband, Clive, to whom I married, if someone who is so incredible, amazing, achieving, so grand, could, if you could fall in love with me, then maybe I'm worth something as well. There is that as well, for me,
Right,
something.
right, right. Iron sharpens iron is what they say. And I relate to what you're expressing as I talk about it is when you come from that collectivist culture where your nature is kind of set in a certain way, it's set in community. You see women operating in their feminine, men operating in that masculine energy, and it works. It's not perfect, but it works. Women find joy in just doing feminine things, and that feminine energy is about receiving. And I think that's what you're expressing, like wanting to have your husband pour into you. And I think there's a troubling thing I think that's happening right now where we have a lot of women who are professionals and they're learning, but I think they take on the type, either you want to call it a head of household or like a very masculine type of energy in relationships, and then there's kind of no space for a man to express his masculine. And so it's going to frustrate you, ladies. It's really going to frustrate you if you don't make space for that man to express his masculine energy, for you to receive from him, for you to become the softer. It doesn't mean that you're any less. Like, hear me, okay? It does not mean that you're any less. There is power in that feminine energy when, as you say, taming your husband and I mean, I love this whole idea of the art of being a woman, art of being a lady, that just really tapping into your feminine energy and seeing the power that comes with that. You're not weak, you're not less. There's power in that. So I'm really intrigued by this, and I'm really happy that I found somebody who, and I think your perspective is not coming from a religious place. It's not coming from a religious mindset or perspective. It's basically perhaps you've observed your parents just operated in the past, and you were in that collectivist culture, and you just recognize that what you have experienced on the other side here in the US, you prefer the way that your nature was set from before you moved here. And it's the same for me. I mean, I just feel like that sort of toxic stress and chronic stress that I think that you have to take on as a professional woman, it does something to you. And your family really kind of they are missing out on seeing that fullness of feminine that you can be as a woman when you're having to carry that toxic chronic stress that comes with
Yeah.
climbing that corporate ladder. I mean, like, not to say that you shouldn't do it, ladies. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying, how do you balance it? The collect, that nature of wanting to be feminine, yet you're also carrying that masculine energy inside of you. How do you now balance that with a man in the picture? It's an interesting conversation. Remind us, Anya, of the name of your book and where people can find it. And we'll take all of the details from you and post them in the show notes and encourage people to support you. Go out and get a copy. And of
And
course, putting a plug in there for my book that's now live called Decoding America.
so it's called Dreaming in Russian. And this is actually a real picture. This is me, my sister, younger, so this is a real photo. And you could find it, of course, on Amazon and all independent bookstores online. And so it's very readily available. So in
And
stores
this
in
is the
your area.
story of your life, back on the other side, looping in stories of your parents and what happened to your dad, and then your immigrant experience here in the United States.
Yes. Also, a lot about my grandparents because my we didn't like, get a chance to talk about, but my grandparents on both sides are major figures. My grandmother was a big performing star in the Soviet Union. Her career spans over 40 years. So she's another example of that femininity of a woman with a huge career, so huge. And they're also war heroes. They all went through the war and they medals for the war, so they fought the Nazis. My other grandfather went through 3 wars, so, and they all just incredibly unusual, interesting individuals. Who, two of my grandparents came and they also immigrated to America in their 70s. So they had their immigrant experience here as well, which is slightly different than, maybe not slightly, than my experience. But yeah, so it is so my view on everything that I talk about is through the prism of my life, through the prism of my parents' life, my sister's life, and but my sister's life very sad, and my grandparents' life. Yeah.
Very good, very good. And so I wonder, Anya, I like to end the show with anything humorous over your time here in the United States that you would like to share with us about something humorous throughout your journey that today you look back and you laugh at, but back then it was considered like a very bad faux pas that you committed, but you just didn't understand it was that clash of cultures and you were making sense of the new world.
I'll tell you, the funny thing was, I'm very, I don't know if it's funny, like I'll tell you 2 things. I'm very bad with spatial orientation. Like I just couldn't get it. Like, and considering I've lived in New York now most of my life in Manhattan, and everybody's been telling me that New York City is the easiest city to understand, especially the like uptown areas, like mid to uptown. Like it's like this is the easiest. It's not like Europe. It's not like downtown New York. It's just everything is spiral and perpendicular. And I remember how it could never, like, I just couldn't understand the streets and the avenues. And because my youngest sister did not speak English. I was the one and she's like, Anya, come on. So she used to, for the first couple of months, we used to live first on First Avenue Avenue, 90th Street, and all we had to do was to go to the supermarket that was like two blocks away. And my orientation was the pear on Gristides, and all I could do was just to focus on that pear. But my sister, who spoke no English, she would just take me by her by the hand and take the and just take me back and forth. So that was, and I couldn't now, like, doing this, I can't believe that I couldn't figure it out. But I don't know, it's hard, I'm sure there were so many ridiculous stories I got myself into, but that was my first acquaintance with New York, my favorite city.
Okay.
Yeah.
You mentioned too, was there one that you thought of previously that
Yeah.
you wanted to share?
Well, it's with my husband Clive, because how we met. He has an important position in, well, I didn't know who he was. I was standing backstage of Carnegie Hall, and my mom, I was still married at the time. We went to a concert with my mom, and we were backstage. Back then there was a party going on. I really wanted to leave. I wanted to go eat. It was late, but my mom, who knows lots of people, and she needed to go and socialize with everyone. So and I said to my mom, I was like, Mom, I am giving you just 10 minutes maximum when we're out of here. So and my mom told me, Anya, I want you to just go and socialize. It's good for your business. It's good for you to know people. It's good this. So I just stood there very proudly, just with my hands folded like this. And I didn't want to just do anything. So I noticed this man who was just staring at me all the time. And he had the tray of champagne, like the champagne glasses. And he walked over to me a couple of times to offer champagne. I don't like champagne, and I said no, and I couple of times. And my mom told me, I said, Anya, please just go talk to him. I'm pretty sure I've seen him here before. My mom goes to Carnegie Hall a lot. She used to go a lot. And she said, I said, Mom, I do not want to go speak to him. He's a waiter. I don't need to speak to him. I really don't. Just please just finish and let's go. And Mom said, No, I don't know. I mean, maybe he's not. I said, Mom, maybe he's the head of catering. I don't know, but he's just a waiter. I don't want to talk to him. So, and then finally, after a while, he kept looking, and then he put the tray down, and he walked over to me. He pointed to my Star of David, and he said to me in this the accent, very like nice, he said, this is a very bold statement. Are you Israeli? I said, no, I'm a Russian Jew. And then he said, well, so am I said, I don't think with that accent, because he spoke very British English. He said, I don't think so with that accent. You're not. He said, well, no, but my ancestors, they all fled Ukraine, all the pogroms and everything. So we started talking, we're talking, and I see all the people coming to him, and I was very irritated, and I just thought, why is he talking to me? And then then he asked me, so can I ask you, what do you do for a living? And I said, I'm a lawyer. And he said, oh, how interesting. So, and then I decided to do what I would never usually do, because I saw that he's much older, and I shouldn't be asking questions back like this to older people. So I said, so what do you do? So then he said, quietly, very politely, he said, oh, I run Carnegie Hall. And to me, first of all, the name Carnegie Hall, to a family like mine, it's a mecca. All musicians were all in the arts. My grandfather ran the biggest concert organization, one of the biggest in the Soviet Union, his entire life. They're all in the performing arts. So the name Carnegie Hall was bigger than the White House and the Kremlin. It's everything. And when he said that he ran Carnegie Hall, my indignation and everything just fell off my face. So I said, you do what? So I thought he was a waiter and then, or a head of catering. So I said, you do what? I said, I run Carnegie Hall. But I said, I'm so sorry, but I have to go make a speech. It's Maestro's birthday today, because it was the conductor's birthday. It's his big celebration. So he made that big speech for him. He kept after that looking at me, and then it was time to leave, and he gave me his card. He said, if I was interested at all to go to lunch one day or something. And sure enough, his assistant emailed me a day or 2 days later. So I asked my mom, I said, Mom, what do I do? And I Googled him. I Googled who he was and everything and about his insane biography and everything. And so, like, insane. And I said, Mom, what do I do? So my mom said, well, they invite you to lunch. You go to lunch. That's what you do. So, and so now he's my husband.
Oh my gosh! And you pushed him away so much thinking he was a waiter. That is too funny.
So this is,
Wow. That's like the best story, but he persisted, that masculine energy. Wow, that's what we
yes,
love. Oh
yes,
my
yes.
gosh, I was
It's
so
all in the
used
book. It's like I've there is like all this. So, but this
in
is
the book. Oh
yeah,
my gosh. You know what? I was so frustrated in the dating scene here in the US where I kept getting the energy or like messages from other female as if they had been indoctrinated that it was okay for them to chase men. And I absolutely was indignant that I was not going to do it. I would
like,
livid. And I kept being told, "Oh, you're too picky," and I was afraid that I wasn't going to find somebody because of just the dating culture here in the US, because perhaps it's over time the men had just changed and had become more a little bit more feminized than we're used to outside of the US. I was just so used to the young men in high school and other places, like, just the chase of it as young girls. And then I come into the US and it was just happening less. And I was just like, what is going on with these men around me? I am not chasing you. And I was like adamant about it. So that is
well,
so
yeah.
beautiful to hear.
So yeah. You didn't know where I
Um,
was going with that, so I wanted to like yeah, yeah.
like that with your husband. That's amazing. That's an amazing story.
Yeah.
So we I know I've had you for a little over an hour and I want to just go ahead and wrap it up. I
Okay.
want to just open the floor for you to just leave us with any advice for perhaps another Russian Jew or anybody else as immigrant who's new to the US about adjusting to life here. What have you learned, over your years of adjusting as an immigrant living in the United States?
Like my now that you know my husband who we're very different actually. We argue a lot and we're very different, but one thing we agree on, and because lots of people come to him for advice because of his position and everything, but we agree on this, like it's it's very difficult to give advice, and he never gives advice to anybody. And I personally, I always think, who am I to give advice to people? Because I'm just me, I'm just Anya, and even my book, it's just a lot of people are so not going to agree with anything I say. But I always say to this, it's just my personal experience. It's based purely on my personal experience. And uh, immigration is a very solitary, just for, like writing a book is a very solitary experience, lonely experience. It's always going to stay with you. It's not going anywhere. You can get the passport, you can get your citizenship, do whatever. You can have your children are American, but you yourself, you're always going to stay an immigrant. And I think you always have to be honest with yourself who you are. And I think for me, um, the best thing I know for myself is that I know who I am, and I'm going to um, live with it, and I'm going to stay with it. And and partly that's there's another reason why I wrote the book, but partly that's why I wrote this book. So I think mm, it's very presumptuous of me to give advice to people who are so much better and smarter and much more achieving than me, who had difficulties coming here. So, but I think these are crazy times. There's a good times, the best of times and the worst of times. And I think the best thing is for people, I think, to never lose inspiration to live and to go on despite everything. So it's just the wish, it's not advice. As
Right,
we,
right, right, right. Okay, no, I get it. I understand. Everybody's on their own journey, on their own path, own trajectory. But I think people are inspired to hear us talk about our challenges and our successes. And sometimes they take away messages that we probably wouldn't even realize that they're taking away. So just for you sharing here today, I know people will be inspired by the tragedy that happened to your family, the same struggles. It sounded like, if your father was in the US, he would be quite affluent financially. However, you had some of the same emotional adjustment challenges as another person who might have arrived as a refugee. We all go through this very same metamorphosis as immigrants coming into the United States or even across the world, right? When you leave the culture that you know and you enter another world and you're decoding it, as I like to say,
I like
it
it.
changes you, it transforms you. It's such a metamorphosis, and a lot of times people don't have the language. Like for me, for years, I couldn't explain what I was going through, and so I thank you for sharing your journey. You might not think that you have anything to share, but I'm sure people will find inspiration through
Thank you.
what you have walked through and putting words to what you've experienced. And I encourage people to check out your book, Dreaming in Russian. And thank you so much for joining us here on the Immigrant Experience in America.
Thank you for having me very much. Thank you.
Thank you. We thank our listeners around the world, and we appreciate your continued support as we build our human library. Please remember to give us a 5-star review, subscribe, and share with your friends, family, and circle of influence.